The crack of a whip echoed through the dusty plains of Colorado Territory, 1875, as Emma Vaughn urged her exhausted oxen forward. 8 months pregnant and traveling alone, she squinted at the horizon where thunderclouds gathered like an omen. Her husband James had died 3 weeks earlier. Typhoid had taken him quickly, leaving her to complete their journey to her cousin's homestead near Silver Creek alone. The wagon wheel hit another rut, sending pain shooting through her swollen body. "Just a little further," Emma whispered, one hand on her belly, the other gripping the reins. The late afternoon sun beat down mercilessly despite the approaching storm. Her lips were cracked from thirst, having rationed the last of her water that morning. When the first contraction hit, Emma nearly toppled from the wagon seat. Too early. The baby wasn't due for another month. She pulled the oxen to a halt, panic rising in her throat. The second contraction came fiercer than the first, and she knew with terrible certainty that her child was coming, here in this desolate stretch of nowhere. Emma managed to climb down from the wagon, her legs buckling as her feet touched the ground. She fumbled with the canvas at the side of the wagon, trying to reach her supplies when a third contraction doubled her over. Her vision swam, the world tilting sideways as she collapsed into the dirt beside the wagon wheel. "Help," she called, but her voice was barely a whisper lost in the vast emptiness. Darkness crept at the edges of her vision as she slumped against the wheel, one hand protectively covering her belly. Her last conscious thought was of her unborn child, who would likely die alongside her in this barren place. Isaac Carter had been tracking the lone wagon since midday. Strange to see a woman traveling alone, especially one in her condition. He'd kept his distance, wary of frightening her, but when he saw her collapse, he spurred his horse forward, closing the distance in seconds. He knelt beside her, checking for a pulse. Relief washed over him when he felt the faint but steady beat beneath his fingers. Her face was pale beneath the dirt and sunburn, but even in her weakened state, she was beautiful honey-blonde hair escaping from a practical braid, delicate features now pinched with pain. Isaac gathered her gently in his arms. "Easy now," he murmured, though she couldn't hear him. He carried her to the shade of the wagon and laid her on his bedroll, which he'd quickly spread out. He dampened his bandana with water from his canteen and placed it on her forehead. Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes the color of summer sky. Fear flashed across her face as she registered his presence. "Don't be afraid," Isaac said, keeping his voice low and calm. "I'm here to help. Name's Isaac Carter." "Emma," she whispered. "Emma Vaughn." Then her face contorted in pain as another contraction seized her. "Your baby's coming," he said, stating the obvious. "I've helped deliver foals and calves, but never—" "Please," she gasped, clutching his hand with surprising strength. "My baby can't die out here." Isaac nodded, determination replacing his uncertainty. "Neither of you is dying today, madam. I promise you that." He worked quickly, gathering supplies from her wagon clean linens, a cooking pot which he filled with water from his canteen and set to boil over a hastily built fire. All the while, Emma's labor progressed, her cries growing more frequent. "Tell me what happened," he said, trying to distract her between contractions. "Where's your husband?" "Dead," she managed. "Typhoid, 3 weeks ago, trying to reach my cousin in Silver Creek." Isaac's jaw tightened. Silver Creek was still 2 days' journey away, and she never would have made it alone. The storm that had been threatening all afternoon finally broke, rain pattering against the canvas wagon cover. Isaac had moved Emma inside the wagon, creating as comfortable a space as possible. Lightning flashed, illuminating her pale face as she gripped his hand through another contraction. "You can do this," he encouraged her. "You're the strongest woman I've ever met. traveling alone like this. Hours passed in a blur of pain and effort. Isaac stayed by her side, wiping her brow, supporting her when she needed to push, speaking words of encouragement when her strength seemed to fail. Just after midnight, with a final, agonized cry, Emma brought her daughter into the world. The tiny girl's wail pierced the night, strong and defiant. Isaac cleaned the infant with gentle hands before wrapping her in a clean blanket and placing her in Emma's trembling arms. "She's perfect," Emma whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks as she gazed at her daughter's face. Isaac felt something shift inside him as he watched them. In his 30 years, he'd never felt the urge to settle down, to claim a woman as his own. But seeing Emma's courage, her fierce determination to survive for her child, awakened something primal within him. He stepped outside to give her privacy, breathing in the rain-washed air. The storm had passed, leaving behind a sky filled with stars. He made a decision then, one that would change the course of his life forever. When he returned, Emma had drifted into an exhausted sleep, her daughter nestled against her chest. He knelt beside them, brushing a strand of hair from Emma's face. She stirred slightly, her eyelids fluttering. Isaac leaned down and pressed his lips gently to her forehead, his voice a rough whisper against her skin. "You're mine now," he said. "Both of you, I'll keep you safe." In her half-conscious state, Emma seemed to relax at his words, a small smile touching her lips before she slipped back into sleep. Morning brought clarity and awkwardness. Emma awoke to find Isaac cooking breakfast over a small fire outside the wagon. Her daughter she'd named her Hope during the night suckled at her breast, a miracle that had survived against all odds. When Isaac brought her a plate of beans and a cup of coffee, Emma regarded him with new wariness. "Did you say something to me last night, after the baby came?" Isaac's sun-browned face colored slightly. "I might have. Was half delirious myself, watching you bring a new life into the world like that." Emma studied him properly for the first time, tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair that curled at the nape of his neck. His face was weathered from years under the sun, but his eyes were a warm brown that reminded her of rich soil after rain. "Why did you help us?" she asked. "Couldn't rightly leave a woman and her unborn child to die on the trail," he said simply. "Wouldn't be Christian." "Thank you," Emma said, her voice catching. "We would have died without you." Isaac nodded, uncomfortable with her gratitude. "What's your plan now, still heading to Silver Creek?" "Yes. My cousin Daniel has a place there. He doesn't know I'm coming or that James is gone, but he won't turn us away." Isaac considered this. "You can't travel yet, not for at least a week. You need to regain your strength, and the little one needs time too." Emma knew he was right, though the thought of delaying worried her. Her supplies were dwindling and she had precious little money left. "I'll hunt," Isaac said, as if reading her mind. "Keep us fed until you're strong enough." "Us?" Emma questioned. "I'm not leaving you and the baby alone again," he said firmly. "I'll see you safely to your cousin's place." Emma should have protested, should have maintained her independence, but relief washed over her. "Thank you," she said again, unable to find other words. They made camp there for 8 days. Isaac built a lean-to beside the wagon for himself, hunted game to keep them fed, and helped Emma tend to Hope. He was surprisingly gentle with the infant, his large, calloused hands carefully supporting her tiny head when Emma needed rest. During those days, they shared their stories. Isaac had been a rancher until rustlers burned his place 3 years ago. Since then, he'd worked odd jobs, trail drives, breaking horses, even a stint as a deputy in a small town that had nearly gotten him killed. "No family?" Emma asked on the 5th evening as they sat by the fire. Hope slept peacefully in a makeshift cradle Isaac had fashioned from a wooden box. "Not anymore," he said, poking at the fire. Ma died when I was 14. Pa followed 3 years later, had a brother who went east during the war and never came back. Emma told him about her life in Missouri, her marriage to James, a kind but restless man who'd convinced her that their fortunes lay in the Colorado Territory. "I loved him," she said honestly, "but I'm not sure we would have been happy in the long run. He was always chasing the next opportunity." On the morning of the 9th day, they packed up the wagon and continued the journey to Silver Creek. Isaac rode alongside on his horse, occasionally scouting ahead to ensure the trail was clear. Emma felt stronger each day, and hope was thriving, her little face filling out, her cries growing more insistent. They made good time, reaching the outskirts of Silver Creek as the sun began to set on the second day. Emma directed Isaac toward her cousin's homestead, a modest place a mile outside of town. Her heart raced with anxiety as they approached. What if Daniel wasn't welcoming? What if he couldn't take in a widowed cousin with an infant? Daniel Vaughn proved to be a stocky, red-faced man with a booming voice and a good heart. He embraced Emma warmly, tears in his eyes as she explained James's fate. His wife Mary fussed over Hope, immediately declaring her the most beautiful baby she'd ever seen. "And who might you be?" Daniel asked Isaac, sizing him up with a protective glance. "Isaac Carter," he said, extending his hand. "Found Mrs. Vaughn when she went into labor on the trail. Thought I'd see her safely to you." Daniel's expression softened. "Then we owe you a great debt, Mr. Carter. You'll stay for supper at least." Isaac looked to Emma, something unspoken passing between them. "I'd be obliged," he said finally. Supper stretched into an overnight stay with Isaac bedding down in the barn. The next morning, Emma found him saddling his horse, preparing to leave. "You're going," she said, hope nestled against her shoulder. Isaac nodded, not meeting her eyes. "Your family will take good care of you both." "They're not my family," Emma said quietly. "Daniel is my cousin, yes, but we barely know each other. I haven't seen him since we were children." Isaac finally looked at her, his expression guarded. "What are you saying, Emma?" She took a step closer. "I'm saying I remember what you whispered that night after Hope was born. You're mine now, you said." His face flushed. "I shouldn't have presumed. You saved our lives," Emma interrupted. "You've been nothing but honorable, but I need to know if those words meant something or if they were just the moment." Isaac's hand stilled on the saddle. "I meant them," he said, his voice rough. "But I've got nothing to offer you, Emma. No home, no land, barely $2 to my name." "I don't need those things," she said. "I need someone I can trust, someone who will stand by me and Hope no matter what comes." Isaac closed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands gently cupping her face. "I would. If you'd have me, I'd stand by you both until my dying day." Emma leaned into his touch. "Then don't go." Their first kiss was tentative, a question and an answer all at once. When they parted, Isaac's eyes held a light Emma had never seen before. "I'll need to find work," he said pragmatically. "Can't support a family on promises." "Daniel mentioned the livery in town needs a man who knows horses," Emma suggested. "And Mary said I could help with her sewing business once Hope is a little older." The future suddenly seemed full of possibilities rather than threats. Emma led Isaac back to the house, where they broke the news to Daniel and Mary. Her cousin was skeptical at first, a whirlwind courtship with a man she barely knew, but even he could see the way Isaac looked at Emma, the gentleness with which he handled little Hope. "Well," Daniel said finally, "I suppose stranger things have happened out here. But you'll court her proper, Carter. No rushing to the altar before you've had time to know each other's ways." Isaac agreed readily. "I aim to do right by them both," he promised. The courtship lasted through the summer and into the fall. Isaac proved himself a hard worker, earning the respect of the townsfolk with his honest labor and quiet dignity. He began building a small house on a piece of land Daniel gifted them, working in the evenings and on Sundays. Emma flourished in Silver Creek. The initial whispers about her situation, a widow with a newborn and a suitor who appeared suspiciously soon after her husband's death, soon gave way to genuine acceptance. Mary introduced her to other young mothers, and Emma found friendship where she had expected judgment. Hope grew stronger each day, her eyes the same deep brown as her father's, tracking everything with curious intensity. Emma sometimes felt a pang of sadness that James would never know his daughter, but those moments became less frequent as her feelings for Isaac deepened. Their wedding took place on a crisp October day, with the aspen trees flaming gold against the blue Colorado sky. Hope, now 4 months old, wore a dress Emma had sewn from her own wedding gown, a symbol of the past transformed into something new and hopeful. "I, Isaac, take you, Emma, to be my wife," he said, his voice steady and sure. "I promise to protect you and hope to provide for you both, to be faithful and true all the days of my life." Emma's vows were equally heartfelt. "I, Emma, take you, Isaac, to be my husband. I promise to stand beside you through whatever life brings, to make a home with you, to love you faithfully all the days of my life." When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Isaac kissed her with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. The small gathering of townsfolk and neighbors cheered as they walked back down the aisle, Hope cradled in Emma's arms. The house Isaac built was simple but solid, 2 rooms to start, with space to add more as their family grew. On their first night there, after Hope was asleep in her cradle, Isaac took Emma's hand and led her outside under the stars. "I want you to know something," he said, his voice serious. "I've never said these words to anyone before, but I need to say them now. I love you, Emma Carter. You and Hope are everything to me." Emma's heart swelled. "I love you too," she whispered. "You came into our lives when we needed you most, and you've never faltered, not once." Their kiss deepened, passion building between them as Isaac swept her into his arms and carried her back inside, to the bed he'd crafted with his own hands. Their lovemaking was tender yet passionate, a physical expression of the bond that had grown between them since that stormy night when Hope entered the world. Winter brought new challenges. The snows came early that year, deep and persistent. Isaac had to dig a path from their door to the barn each morning. Emma worried about him riding into town for work in such conditions, but they needed the income, especially with Christmas approaching. On the coldest night of December, a blizzard howled around their little house. Isaac had made it home just before the worst hit, bringing supplies and a small wooden horse he'd carved for Hope's first Christmas. They sat before the fire, Hope asleep on a blanket nearby, as the wind rattled the windows. "Reminds me of the night we met," Emma said, leaning against his shoulder. Isaac chuckled, wrapping his arm around her. "Except you were considerably more distressed then." "I was terrified," she admitted, "not just of the birth but of being alone, of failing James by not completing our journey. You could never fail anyone, Emma. You're the strongest person I know." She turned to face him, serious now. "I need to tell you something I've suspected for a while, but now I'm certain." She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "We're going to have a baby in the summer." Isaac's expression transformed, wonder and joy spreading across his features. "A baby." "Our baby," Emma nodded, tears of happiness spilling down her cheeks. "Hope will have a little brother or sister." Isaac gathered her in his arms, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair, "for giving me a family. For trusting me with your heart." "You earned that trust," Emma said. "Every day since you found us, spring brought renewal to the land and to their lives." As the snow melted and the first wildflowers appeared, Emma's pregnancy progressed. Hope took her first tentative steps, falling more often than not but always determined to try again. Isaac added a room to their house, preparing for the new arrival. Emma often thought about how dramatically her life had changed in the space of a year. From the depths of despair beside that wagon wheel to this deep contentment, it seemed almost miraculous. Yet it wasn't miracle but choice that had brought them here. Isaac's choice to help a stranger in need, her choice to trust a man she barely knew, both of their choices to build a life together. On a warm June evening, as they sat on their porch watching Hope toddle through the grass chasing fireflies, Emma felt the first contraction. Unlike Hope's birth, this labor progressed slowly, giving them plenty of time to prepare. Isaac sent word to Mary, who came to help while Daniel rode for the doctor in town. This time, Emma wasn't afraid. Isaac was by her side, his steady presence calming her through each wave of pain. When their son was born just after dawn, his lusty cry filled the room. The doctor cleaned him up and placed him in Isaac's arms, a moment the man had missed with Hope. Isaac's hands trembled slightly as he cradled his son. "He's perfect," he whispered, awe in his voice. He brought the baby to Emma, laying him gently on her chest. "What shall we name him?" Emma asked, though they had discussed names at length. Isaac smiled, touching the baby's tiny hand. "James," he said, "to honor the man who brought you west. Without him, we never would have found each other." Emma's eyes filled with tears at the generosity of this gesture. "James Daniel Carter," she agreed. "A good, strong name." As the years passed, their family grew. 2 more daughters joined Hope and James, filling their expanded house with laughter and chaos. Isaac eventually saved enough to buy the livery outright, becoming a respected businessman in Silver Creek. Emma's skill with a needle turned into a small dressmaking business that she ran from a room in their home. On their 10th anniversary, Isaac surprised Emma with a locket containing tiny portraits of their 4 children. As he fastened it around her neck, he kissed the spot where the chain met her skin. "Happy?" he asked, a question he still posed regularly, as if amazed by his good fortune. "Completely," Emma answered truthfully. "Though sometimes I think about that day, how close Hope and I came to dying alone on that trail." "But you didn't," Isaac reminded her, turning her to face him. "You survived. You're the bravest woman I've ever known, Emma Carter." "We survived because you found us," she corrected him. "Because you decided we were worth saving." "Best decision I ever made," Isaac said, drawing her into his arms. "That moment when I told you that you were mine, I meant it with everything in me, even then when I barely knew you." "I know," Emma said, resting her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "And I became yours willingly, just as you became mine." Outside, their children played in the yard of the home they'd built together. Inside, Emma and Isaac held each other, grateful for the twist of fate that had brought them together on a stormy afternoon 15 years earlier. A pregnant woman collapsed beside her wagon, a cowboy who saw not just someone to save but someone to love. "Mine," Isaac whispered again, his lips brushing her forehead in an echo of that first night. "Yours," Emma confirmed. "Always." The shadows lengthened across their land as the sun began its descent, painting the Colorado sky in brilliant hues of pink and gold. Their story, begun in desperation on the lonely trail, had transformed into something neither could have imagined. A life rich with love, family, and purpose. From the darkest moment of Emma's life had come her greatest joy, proof that even in the wild uncertainty of the frontier, love could take root and flourish against all odds.